Grace United Methodist Church, which is the congregation on this beautiful campus, and we welcome you here. At Grace, we have a long history in this neighborhood in Atlanta, and one of the things we strive to do is to bring all of our neighbors together, especially around topics that concern our entire community. And what better topic than to be here to talk about how we're good stewards of our earth. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be in partnership with the wonderful folks who are here. And Grace United Methodist Church is actually a really unique church for the United Methodist denomination because we are situated in the headquarters of the General Board of Global Ministries, which for United Methodist is our worldwide mission agency. So I get the privilege of working with a lot of cool people here. There are about 200 employees who work here during the week. And they are the ones who are actually responsible for a lot of the wonderful renovations to this old building, and a lot of them that have brought us under LEED certification with a platinum LEED certified building here, and they've made wonderful improvements to the campus, not only to beautify it, but to help us sustain our earth as well and our presence here. And I want to introduce you now to Reverend Jenny Phillips. She's someone I get the privilege of working with. She's the Creation Care Program Manager for GBGM.
Thank you. Thanks. We're so glad to welcome you all here. Yes, I am the Creation Care Program Manager for GBGM with the United Methodist Committee on Relief, which is the relief and development arm of the United Methodist Church. We have people around the world working on the front lines of disasters, many of them exacerbated by climate change. And so when our offices moved here about a year ago from New York to Atlanta, we wanted to ensure that the facility that we ended up in was one that reflected our values around the environment. And so as Stacy shared, the building, the wing that we built, is a LEED Platinum certified building. We believe it to be the first and only LEED Platinum certified building to be built and occupied by a faith institution in the state of Georgia. So we're very proud of that. And we hope that we will inspire others. So we're glad to have you here, and we're very glad to see how this campaign unfolds. Now I want to introduce you to another friend, John Seidel. He is the Director of Sustainability for the Atlanta Mayor's Office of Resilience.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm going to keep it short. My name is John R. Seidel. I'm the Director of Sustainability for the Mayor's Office of Resilience. Former Mayor Reed, now Mayor Bottoms. Thank you so much for coming out on a Thursday night, 7 o'clock. You can hear rainy, you can hear my voice. I'm still a little bit hoarse and a little bit broken from the UGA game. But we actually just completed our community conversations for our 100% clean energy plan, the 7th community conversation last night in Southeast Atlanta, where there was basically only standing room in the back. And what's really exciting about that is Atlanta's 100% clean energy goal by 2025 for all government operations and 100% by 2035 for citywide is we have the ability and the history and the context to not just have a clean energy transition, but one that's equitable and one that brings the lowest up. And when you talk about resilience, that's key. That's absolutely key. So what we have here is one of the main really wheels of how we're going to get this done. How are we going to be able to create massive solar production? The Solarize model, as I explained to a lot of my friends who aren't as eco-hip, is that Costco type bulk purchase program for solar. Getting it for as cheap as possible, implementing it and coming together with your neighbors, NGOs, communities, and yes, corporations as well, and making solar all around Atlanta. So really, I don't bite. Please come and introduce yourself to me. Would love to have you and your voice implemented into our 100% clean energy plan that's actually coming out at the end of January. And thank you so much again for coming out. I'm going to give it back to Jeanette.
Okay, let's go a little wonky, huh? But first, I wanted to introduce all of the people who will make this program possible. It takes a village. So my name is Jeanette Gare. I'm the Executive Director of Environment Georgia. We are one of the partners of Solarize Atlanta, but only one. I want to recognize all of them. Not everybody's here tonight, but City of Refuge is another partner. Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. Kate, their Executive Director, back and forth. There are other folks here from Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. Central Atlanta Progress. We just heard from John R. with the the Sierra Club, Ted, Terry, where are you? Ted is in the back drinking some water. Thank you. U.S. Green Building Council, Livable Buckhead, South Face, and then Solar Crowdsource, which is Don and Moreland and Gustavo. Hi, guys. So we are all going to be available for questions in just a little bit, which is a great segue into the agenda and how we're going to run the evening. So my job is to take a couple minutes to give you just some really, the bare basics that you might need to have in your mind as we start thinking about solar and why the heck would we even think about running a program like this. And then also want to spend a little bit of time talking about what are some of the threats that we see on the horizon, which will help inform why we think this program is so important. I'm going to then hand it off to Don, who is going to really dig into and explain the Solarize model. So John was talking about the Costco model, like what exactly is this Costco model that we're talking about? And then Kate's going to come up and talk about how are we going to take some input back from you, and where do we go from here? So we're actually, after probably about 20 minutes of us talking about at you, going to break. You'll see, if you haven't noticed yet, that we have stations around the room, and you'll also notice that hopefully when you came in, everybody got a sheet of little blue dots. Did anyone not get blue dots? Awesome, excellent job, Simon Table. So you're actually going to have a chance to vote on what you want this program to look like, and then also ask us questions. So we'll be breaking, again, in probably about 20 minutes to get that feedback here from you. But first, jumping into Solar 101. How basic can it get? The sun hits a solar panel, causes a reaction, which creates electricity. You can either use that electricity there in your home, or you can store it in a battery, which is actually not represented on this. We need to update our little house. Or you can send it back to the grid. So you're still attached to the electric grid. You could send that solar power back into the grid if you're not using it. You can also pull electricity off of the grid if you're not creating enough solar power for your use at any given moment. Really good news, solar is growing. This graph explains that. It also shows some really important federal tax credits that have helped to make that growth possible. One of the really nice things that solar does is it creates jobs. So as solar has grown, the solar jobs have also grown. It seems pretty common sense. And then the other really cool thing is that we find every time we basically double the capacity in solar, the cost drops by around 20%. And that has continued to be true. So you can see the cost of solar is dropping precipitously. It is becoming more and more affordable, the components that go into a solar system to actually put solar on your roof. And here's some more factoids about solar in Georgia. So Georgia's actually doing a pretty good job when it comes to solar. We are 8th in the country when it comes to solar capacity. We have a pretty impressive amount of solar jobs and solar companies. But, here's the but. If you really dig into so 1,477 megawatts, that's probably a little bit out of date. But if you really dig into where are all those megawatts, that's a little over a power plant worth of solar in the state. Where is that power plant? It's in large fields of solar, and I don't think any of those fields of solar are actually in Atlanta. A lot of them are down in South Georgia. So that's our challenge. If we're going to get to 100% clean renewable energy, we need to figure out a rooftop market. There's just no way we're going to do it in a city like Atlanta. We don't have the fields to build gigantic utility scale. It's called utility scale solar. And so this starts digging in on that rooftop residential market. We used to have a tax credit in Georgia that gave you a tax credit for putting solar on your roof. So there's a federal tax credit. We had a state tax credit. And that red arrow represents the sunset of that tax credit. And you can see that residential rooftop solar in Georgia basically went off a cliff. We had well over 150 installs one year, and the next year we didn't even break 40. And the next year was even worse. And then we started running Solarize programs. So 2015, we ran Solarize Tybee out on the coast. 2016, we ran Solarize Athens. Last year, we ran Solarize Decatur, DeKalb. I'm sorry, I owe you guys an apology. I meant to update the graph and have actually a bar for 2017, but I think it would look pretty impressive. Solarize Decatur, DeKalb, we did over 100 houses, and I think there was something like only 170 rooftop installations in Georgia last year. So Solarize Decatur, DeKalb was the bulk, again, of the installs of rooftop solar. So we figured something out, right? We figured out how to keep the rooftop solar market alive in Georgia. And our hope is, if we continue to run these Solarize campaigns, we will not one day put ourselves out of business and not have to run Solarize campaigns, because the rooftop market will just be so vigorous and be going so well that we won't need us. But why isn't that the case? Why can't you, think about how weird this is. You go for a walk in your neighborhood, do you see a solar roof? If you walk around your neighborhood, do you see a roof with solar on it? Right. That's ridiculous. And why is that? There's a couple reasons. One, we've talked about a little bit, the rooftop market in Georgia gets very little love. There's a man in the back who's running for the Public Service Commission who you could talk to after this. I'm sure he could talk your ear off about ways that we could give the rooftop market more love in Georgia. We could pass policies that help support the rooftop market. That national tax credit that I talked about is going to be going away. So that's also a threat that we're facing. And then the last threat is, this is really wonky, I don't want to get into it too much, but there is right now a trade case going on. The president, at the end of this month, will have the opportunity to decide whether or not he wants to put tariffs on imported solar panels, or on some imported solar panels. We don't know what he's going to do. We're kind of assuming worst case scenario, but that will increase the price of solar panels. The good news for residential solar is the solar panel is only a tiny piece of the cost of the overall system, so we've actually run the numbers, and we don't think it's going to actually hurt us that badly in terms of pricing, but I think it does make the case for a Solarize program even more. All right, which is a great segue into why Solarize, and what is Solarize? So I want to introduce Don Moreland. He runs a company called Solar Crowdsource, which runs platforms for Solarize.
Thank you. Hi, before I get started, I want to recognize a couple folks. First, an elected official, Rob Pitts, with the Fulton County. You did recognize him. Well, let's recognize him again, everybody. And then John Knowles, he's a PSC candidate for 2018, and he's back there. And big solar advocate, thank you for your time. For all you nonprofits, this is open to the public, so we did not invite anybody specifically, but as I'm speaking right now, Lindy Miller just came in. She's also a PSC candidate for 2018. Thank you for coming. All right. Yes, my name is Don Moreland. I have this company called Solar Crowdsource, and I'm fortunate enough to have partnered with a lot of local area nonprofits to put on these Solarize programs. It does take a village. There's no way we can just launch one of these out of the blue. It takes all of those partners that you guys saw in the first slide, especially the Office of Resilience with the City of Atlanta. And thank you, John R. Seidel, for coming today. So what is Solarize? You guys probably already have a good idea by now, but it's a community-based program. There have been other Solarize programs that have been run by, say, installers who want to do a bulk purchasing program with people in a certain geographic area, but our model is a community-based program, and we feel like when you have a community-based program with a competitive bid process, you're able to get the best quality materials for the lowest possible price. So that's our model, and that's what community-based means. It's a bulk purchasing program, so the more people that participate, the cheaper the cost for everyone, and I'm going to go through how that pricing works in just a second. We're removing barriers. So each and every one of you, if you were interested in going solar, how would you start? Do you know?
Call you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Or whoever. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. It sounded like Dana for a second. There she is, over there. Well, so you might start doing some research online. You might start looking at materials. You might get 3 bids from installers, and you might even do research on installers. But do you really know the quality of the equipment? Do you know the warranty periods? Do you know whether these companies are going to be around in 20, 25 years from now? Do you know the quality of the contract or what kind of workmanship warranty that they offer? So what we do is have a competitive bid process, and not only are we a mixture of community-based organizations, but also solar kind of subject matter expertise guys that know a lot of this stuff and can weed things out and provide the best program possible. And when I mean that, by the best contractors, best materials at the lowest possible price. So that's a big thing about what the Solarize program does. It removes all those barriers for you guys. We talked about making solar more affordable and accessible through that process. This is not a new thing. Solarize programs started many years ago with the Department of Energy grant back in Oregon in 2009. Since then, there's been over 250 programs around the country. And in Georgia, this is the 5th or 6th, which we're going to show you more logos in a second. But this is a tried and true method. We've had a lot of success with this in the past. There's been a lot of success around the country, and it's a great way to go solar if that's what you're interested in doing, which I assume you are because you're here. Talked about all that, and now we're in Georgia. So the first one was in Tybee, and that was where the Tybee Island actually did an RFP, and Hannah Solar won that bid. And then we had one in Athens where Alternative Energy Southeast won that one, and Montana is back there. We've got a bunch of folks here from Hannah as well to answer some of your questions. And then Hannah did a Solarize 2.0 called Solarize Savannah, if you guys may have heard about that. Uh-oh. So how you guys doing? Raise your hand, and I want you to be honest for a second. Raise your hand if any of you or you know somebody who got caught up in this whole I want to pay my property bills early because of the new tax bill thing going on. Anybody? One person. We are not talking about politics here, please. Hold your political comments for later and to yourself. But I'm fascinated with this whole idea of people were lining up at the tax assessor's office and the tax commissioner's office all around the state to pay their taxes early. Because what they wanted to do in the new tax bill, and I don't want to get too into the weeds on it, but our deduction for what we pay for taxes in the state of Georgia is limited to $10,000 now. So, and that includes income taxes, property taxes, and all kinds of stuff. So, if you have a decent enough property tax bill and decent enough income tax bill, the idea was to pay in 2017 for 2018 and avoid that limitation for 2018, and you could possibly save some money. And I just couldn't believe it. People actually lining up to pay their property tax bill. It fascinated me. And then I thought, why aren't people lining up to pay their utility bill early? Because if you think about it, that's what solar actually is. You're paying your utility bill early. You do come out of pocket with an upfront cost. You get a 30% tax credit. So the example I was using before was if you were to pay it in advance of $10,000 on your property tax bill, you might get about $2,400 in a net tax savings out of that. If you were to use that same $10,000 to prepay your utility bill, then you get a 30% tax credit, $3,000 tax credit, plus you save on your electricity bill for the next 3 decades or plus after that. You're going to pay that off in 10 years, and then you're just going to have free energy from the sun for the next couple of decades after that. And so I was just amazed when people lining up to pay their property bill, if we kind of frame that in a different way, then maybe people will actually see some of the financial benefits of solar. Oh, and by the way, it's clean renewable energy. The grid that we all live on is about 70-75% fossil fuels. So we used to lead these conversations 5 years ago with the environmental aspects, and now it's just some icing on the cake. So why Solarize? Raise your hand if you get a return on your investment paying your utility bill. Come on. All right, it was a trick question. Here, you actually do eventually get a return on your investment. Like I said, you get that 30% tax credit the year it's installed, and then it'll take anywhere between 8 and 12 years to pay itself off after that. But for those who aren't going to be in your home or your property for 8 or 10 years, don't fret, because we also have a lot of good data from a lot of good people who will tell you that homes with solar sell faster and at a premium than homes without solar. So you're going to get your money back one way or the other. It's a hedge against rising utility rates. I'm not the one saying this, but other folks, including PSC commissioners, have said that your utility rates are going up. Who here has heard of Plant Vogel? Who here is paying for Plant Vogel? So that has not been priced into the rates yet. In 2016, the PSC agreed with Georgia Power to freeze the rates at that time. In 2019, the rate case is going to come up again, in addition to the Integrated Resource Plan. And at that time, I'm not saying it, but other folks are saying it, rates are projected to go up anywhere between 8 and 12% in just the next few years to pay for that, let alone the acquisition of Atlanta Gas and Light, which is about $12 billion. So you're hedging your bets now for raising utility rates later, and the more utility rates rise, the better your return on your investment. Solar adds value to homes and businesses. We've talked about that. Tax incentives, we've talked about the 30% tax credit, but what we didn't talk about is if anybody's here interested in commercial applications, there's additional tax incentives, especially with the new tax law that just took effect, that can help pay your system off much faster. If you're here for commercial, you're looking at anywhere between a 5 and 6 year payback rather than an 8 and 12 year payback. So when we get farther into the program, you want to be sure to check out some of the benefits for commercial. Oh, and by the way, it's clean and renewable. Is this thing working? Very little operating and maintenance. I can't sit here and say there's no operating and maintenance because tell me if there's anything that's no operating and maintenance. I would like to know what that is. But with solar panels, there's no moving parts. These are passive systems. They pretty much just work on their own. They continue to generate and crank out electricity for decades. Every now and then, you might have to adjust an inverter, and we're going to talk about components, but you might have to clean off the panels, but typically if it's on your roof, then the rain will wash away all the pollen and other debris over the years. That takes care of it. But you may want to get up there, just like cleaning your gutters, you may want to get up there and clean your panels upon occasion. And solar is good for Georgia's economy. I could talk forever on this, and I hope I didn't miss Jeanette's conversation on this, but we spend anywhere about $25 billion annually on fossil fuels when we import petroleum, natural gas, and coal to power our cars and our homes and our businesses. The annual budget for the state of Georgia itself is about $25 billion. When we are able to decarbonize the grid and build new distributed energy systems, we are creating jobs. It's economic development. We're relying on our own resources for our own power, for our own needs, and it just makes sense. 10 years ago, we couldn't sit here and say that because solar would cost about 10 times what it costs now. But now that solar, the prices come down, it's more affordable. Now it starts to make sense, and now it's a big-time economic development driver in Georgia. We have over 4,000 jobs in Georgia so far, full-time equivalent jobs, just with solar. And that number's growing. Uh-oh. All right. Trying to think. Is it about Trump? Okay.
Recently, for those who saw Al Gore's latest movie, you will, or if you honed in on it, Chile is in the process, the country of Chile, which I can tell you their GDP is installing 15.3 gigawatts, which is 15,300 megawatts. And I haven't yet Googled up the GDP of Georgia, although that 25 billion just said, of course, figure into it. How can a nation like Chile, which is not the most rich nation of South America at all, or the world, how can they do this other than placing important things important into doing?
I'm going to assume that's a rhetorical question, and I couldn't agree with you more. And it's because they're trying to be more self-reliant on the resources that they have themselves, rather than exporting money to make other countries rich and importing fuels that they just burn up into their own atmosphere and pollute their own environment. Doesn't make any sense, does it? All right. And here's our little meme. We got a couple memes in the presentation today. Let's talk about this pricing. We do have a competitive bid process. We talked about the bulk purchasing. So far, with the other Solarize programs that we've done, we've been able to accomplish anywhere from 20 to 25% savings on the cost of solar if you were to go it alone. And that's because usually when we do a competitive bid process, we're getting very good pricing on high quality materials. Those high quality materials would cost you a lot more if you were just doing a one-off by yourself. So this whole idea about bulk purchasing really does work. And here's a tiered pricing schedule. So at the risk of life and limb, I'm going to get up here for a second. Hopefully, is this stage yeah, okay. Oh. All right. So this is not the pricing for Solarize Atlanta. This is just pricing that we pulled out of the air. But just to illustrate the point, when we first start, let's say 10 of you go in and you want to sign up for this program. You each get a 5 kilowatt system. 5 kilowatts is about enough to average, to power about 50% of the average size home. The average size home being about 2,000, 2,200 square feet, something like that, okay? So that system in tier 1 would cost you $2.95 a watt. Let's just round up to $3 a watt. 5 kilowatts times $3, that's $15,000, okay? You get a 30% tax credit on top of that, which is $4,500. So your net cost after the tax credit is $10,500. Are you with me? Okay. So after those first 10 people, after the first 10 of you sign up, that equals 50 kilowatts, 5 times 10. Just then, the next person that signs up, we go into tier 2 pricing, which is $2.90. And the people who signed up in tier 1 get a rebate of that extra 5 cents that they spent on their first round. Does that make sense? So far, in all the programs that we've done, we have reached tier 6 pricing, which means at the end of the program, the people who signed up earlier are getting quite a nice little rebate check at the end of the program. So that's how the tier pricing works. We have a built-in incentive for people to share the program with their friends and family in the city of Atlanta, and everybody saves on the cost of solar together. Now, there's usually a lot of questions about pricing at this point, so I'm gonna do 2 questions. If anybody has a question, go ahead and shoot it right now. Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying that whatever tier we land up at, it doesn't matter where we signed up, you get the price at the highest tier.
That's exactly right. You're going to sign a contract and pay the price at the tier that you that you're in at the time you sign that agreement, but then you'll get a rebate check at the end of the program for the difference. That way, everybody's paying the same price for the same materials, the same installer, the same program. Okay? Second question? Yes, ma'am.
Multifamily buildings are priced at residential or
Commercial. Commercial. It kind of depends. I'm sorry? Oh, the question was multifamily residences, multifamily buildings, are they priced at residential or commercial pricing? And the answer is, it kind of depends. So if it's a condo and all you own is the inside and not the outside, then it'll be up to the condo owner who controls, or the homeowners association that controls and maintains the outside, whether they want to put solar and then pass those savings on to you. If you have a townhome, a lot of times you own the outside and you own the roof. It can be called multifamily, I guess, but at the same time, you have your own meter, you're the one paying the utility company, it's your roof, you should be able to do whatever you want with that. So there's some gray area as far as multifamily. Okay, that was it, 2 questions. Moving on. Limited geographic area, and this is true too. It's nice when installers don't have to go all the way around the state to answer calls and do site visits and sign proposals and do installations, so they get a benefit from a reduction of customer acquisition costs and installation. So those savings are passed on to you through the program. And just kind of like what we're doing here, we're able to focus on a particular market, on a particular geographic area. And the good news is, with Solarize Atlanta, the city of Atlanta has already done a lot of great work in streamlining the permitting process for rooftop solar. Stephanie Benfield, how are you? Stephanie is the Chief Resilience Officer at the City of Atlanta, and she has done an amazing job with their building department in streamlining the permitting process. And so we've already got all of that, kind of all those wrinkles worked out for you, and that additionally brings down the soft cost of solar, which we're able to pass on through this program. And all that is reduced customer acquisition costs. We can't keep these prices and this intensity up for too long, so there is a limited time. We're right now projected to launch on April 1st. We have yet to launch our request for proposal, so we'll hope to do that at the end of this month. It'll be 30 days for the local solar contractors to answer, and then there's about a 30-day onboarding process. So we're looking at about April 1st, and we're going to drive this whole process throughout the entire summer, and you'll see more information about exactly when the end of the enrollment period will be, and then there's more time to actually sign your contracts after that. Okay? All right, again, the barriers, we're just vetting contractors, materials, predetermined pricing. I'm trying to drill this into you guys' heads because I know I already talked about it, but this is really the key of a Solarize program. And it all begins here. So the Solarize benefits are multiple. The cliche of a win-win-win situation is kind of overdone, but in this case, I think it works. The participant, you guys benefit, the contractor benefits, and the state of Georgia benefits. Okay, and I won't go through all these, but we'll post this presentation on the solarizeatl.com website so you guys can review it on your own time. We've done a few of these programs before. Here's just some highlights of the Athens program, the Decatur DeKalb program. Both very successful programs, but you see here, this thing doesn't have a laser on it, but at the bottom, we do a bunch of workshops where we meet with you folks and we try to educate folks about the benefits of solar. We have open houses. We also try to give back. Part of all of the solar Solarize programs that we do, a portion of the proceeds from the contractor and from Solar Crowdsource go towards a donated solar system for a deserving nonprofit in the community. And so far, we've donated just about 25 kilowatts, which is, I don't know, something around probably $60,000, $70,000 so far. So we're real proud of that. All right, so right now I'm going to turn this over to Kate Mosley. She is Executive Director of Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, and she's going to walk you through the rest of our day.
Thank you, Don. Thank you all for being here, because you are the reason we're in this room tonight. We now need to hear from you. That's the point of tonight. This campaign is not about Sierra Club or GIPL or Solar Crowdsource. This campaign is about you and other residents across the city of Atlanta. So now is a critical time for you to provide your input in what this community-led initiative looks like going forward. And we are going to do that by getting your opinions with that blue dot and going around the room, talking to one another, and looking at these posters on the wall and voting for certain criteria that we will include in the request for proposal that will go out to solar installers here in the state. So here, I'm going to go through the list. I'm actually going to go ahead and put them all up here so you can be absorbing that as I talk. But here's what we want to cover. In the other Solarize campaigns of which we've been a part, we have determined what are some of the best criteria to incorporate into a Solarize campaign. So we bring that knowledge to you tonight to determine what are some of the things that are of high priority possibly to you. And you may not, what is priority to you may not be the same to your neighbor. And we will take all of that into consideration. But you have the opportunity to say, system quality is of high priority. That's why I came in the door tonight. I care about the high quality systems that will be incorporated or included in this program. Or maybe you care about system aesthetics. We take that into consideration. Solar panels are not all created equally in terms of quality or how they look. And you might care how those panels look on your rooftop. And that might be something you want the campaign to hold up in high regard. We look at system warranties. Maybe you want a system that has a long-term warranty that you can be guaranteed by the installer for many years to come, not just during the time period of this campaign. You may hold in high regard the opportunity to support a local nonprofit, support the community project that the Solarize campaign will be donating to, and you may vote on that as a high priority. Or maybe you're interested in hiring practices of the solar installer that is to be chosen. Sometimes we might encourage a solar installer to think about hiring more local folks, or you're looking for a solar installer who's definitely Georgia-based, and that is something you value in your contractor. That is something you could vote for. Possibly you hold as a high value the implementation plan, how this campaign is managed. And that is something you want to see. I mean, obviously we all want a campaign that is run smoothly, but you see that that is a high priority, and that is going to determine the effectiveness of the campaign. Or also the marketing plan. You want to see a certain level of marketing related to the campaign, and so you think that is important for the success of Solarize and in your acquisition of solar. And also, maybe you're looking for battery storage. So you want to make sure that a contractor that is selected has the capacity to provide some amenities to the already expected solar panels. Battery storage or other technology that can come with a system. And we will share in detail later what all those components are. But these are some of the criteria that are included in a request for proposal that goes out to solar installers, and then they respond to us as it relates. So it's more than just price. It's more than how the panels look. It is all of these things, and maybe there's some other things you want the Solarize Coalition to know. But tonight what we've asked in order to streamline this process is that with those blue dots you've been given, you're invited to walk around the room and place your dot on your top. You want top 4, Jeanette? Or top 3? Top 4. Use all 4 blue dots. And you might put all your dots on one criteria, or you might spread them out over 4 of the options. There will be community leaders at each of the criteria panels on the wall to answer any basic questions. No, we won't get too much in the weeds with this, but basic questions about what that particular contract criteria represents so that you can make an informed decision. You all are not the only ones who are getting to vote on this, though, because, as you know, City of Atlanta is such a large community and a diverse community. We have made this criteria selection process available online with a survey, and we're asking for feedback for this campaign through an online survey. You all can help us share with your neighbors and others in your network to complete this survey so that we can have diverse representation in determining best criteria for this Solarize campaign going forward. Any questions about this aspect of the evening? So in just a little bit, we'll get up and we'll walk around and vote on these criteria. And because you've been registered at the door coming in, we'll keep you informed as to what those criteria ranked the highest among this group and then also among the online survey participants. There are other ways you can be of help beyond tonight. Again, because City of Atlanta is such a large, beautifully diverse community, we will need your help in reaching into neighborhoods that might not be represented in this room tonight. We need solar captains, solar ambassadors, and helpers to get the word out and host neighborhood parties. Help us stay connected with your neighborhood listserv and other community groups of which you are a part. We want the Solarize campaign to reach into the far areas across the city, and you can help us do that. We also need help, like I said, in distributing the survey, and that link is on our website and will be made available also via email to you. So post it on social media, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter, and then share the survey that way. It'll be a critical part of our communication plan going forward. And then, what happens after tonight? We are going to collect the data that you're providing us now and through the survey through the end of this month. And the members of the coalition sitting on the planning team or the steering committee will cobble together that information and write the request for proposal that will then be distributed to the solar installers. And solar installers will have a month to respond to that request. And then throughout the month of March, the Solarize Coalition will form a selective committee, a selection process committee, who will review the responses from the solar installers, and using your criteria, will determine who is the installer for Solarize Atlanta. Once that company or companies have been selected, that will be announced and the campaign will launch. Until then, we actually have time to still keep talking about the possibilities of Solarize Atlanta and how it continues to advance our city's commitment to moving towards an important campaign that's going on simultaneously with our efforts here. Once the campaign launches, that means you will be able to go online and register for a free solar evaluation for your property, whether residential or commercial. That gets you a free solar assessment with a desktop audit and a conversation with a solar expert to determine what are the best steps forward for your particular property and interests. And that will continue on, but that'll start 1st of April, and then throughout the summer, we will process interest and registrations for the campaign and hopefully begin some installations once contracts are signed. And we'll wrap up the campaign in the fall. Just to reiterate what Don said, these campaigns at this great price and all this momentum cannot be sustained for long periods. Solarize campaigns' fruitfulness lies in the brief time period in which these campaigns operate, and that's intended for good reason. So It's meant to help spur our community action and engage people in a timely manner, but we don't want you to feel rushed about this process. But also you should feel equipped, or rather supported, in making the decision about whether solar is right for you. Okay, so, you want me to take any questions right now, or shall we move into the next?
We could take just 3 or 4 questions, probably.
All right.
John?
John, what's your question?
How does this interrelate with PACE financing, which would allow you to basically do it without any out-of-pocket expense? That's new in Atlanta. So
It
can you
is,
explain
yes.
the interconnection between the two?
Don or Jeanette, y'all want to address PACE?
Sure. PACE is a acronym for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and the City of Atlanta, Stephanie Stuckey, I'm sorry, I got your last name wrong before. Jump in here whenever you feel it's necessary, or Megan, but PACE is a way you can finance solar for commercial applications only. So this might apply to some of the multifamily, also to nonprofits, businesses, city governments, things like that. Where you can actually borrow up to 100% of the cost of the project, and that's financed by and through the city and levied on your tax bill. So the financing runs through your property, not through you. So the underwriting happens at the property level. So they might look at things like what is your loan to value ratio, how many mortgages do you have on the property, have you been late on property taxes before, and it's a very unique way to finance your commercial solar projects. And we are going to be working hand in glove with PACE Atlanta as part of this program to implement that. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
I just hope the timing will be where PACE will be fully implemented when this program's implemented, because we still have some bond validation process to go through. But it's an exciting opportunity. It's only available to commercial building stock and really makes sense for large commercial building stock.
Yeah. Yep. So that's PACE. Other financing options are available. There's a program in Georgia that was just enacted into law in 2015 called the Solar Energy Procurement Act, and I know I'm butchering the actual name of the bill, but it's a way where a third-party developer can come onto your property and they would operate, own, and maintain the solar system, and then sell the electricity directly to you at a rate that's either at or around what you're paying now. And then hopefully there will be a cost savings moving forward. So those who are ready to make the switch to clean renewables, or those who are willing to go ahead and try to hedge against future rate increases, what we call SEPA, the Solar Energy Procurement Agreement, is a good way to go there. Also, when we do our RFP processes, we always ask for the solar contractors to bring any financing options that they may have with them. Every single one of our campaigns so far, the solar contractors have brought 100% financing, and we also work very closely with SunTrust Bank over the last couple programs, who have really great terms for home equity lines of credit as well. Yes, sir.
How will it work after it's installed? Do you get a credit on your utility power bill, or selling it to them?
No, that's a good question. This program, the question was, how does it work after it's installed? Do you get a credit on your electricity bill, or are you going through your utility company? And the answer is, this particular program is designed for what we call behind-the-meter applications. So you're not selling 100% of your electricity to the utility bill and getting a credit on your utility bill for this particular program. Here, you're using and consuming all the electricity that's being generated. If you generate more electricity than you're consuming, then that excess will be sold back to the utility at what they call avoided cost, or through their RCV rates.
Which is a ripoff.
Which is a ripoff. Thank you, John. John said that, I didn't say that. Which I think I just heard tonight. It was 3.8 cents, but they just took it down to 3.2 cents recently. So when we are looking for solar contractors, we're not looking to gouge people or to build oversized systems. It's really important that we select a solar contractor that can right-size the system so you're not feeding too much energy back to the grid, selling it to them for 3.2 cents, and then they turn around and sell that same kilowatt hour to your neighbor at 11 cents a kilowatt hour. We're also going to be very cognizant about solar or storage backup systems. Our Solarize Dunwoody program that we're running right now, Tina Wilkins is here, and she is our solar champion in Solarize Dunwoody, and the folks at Hannah, they won that bid, but we're selling a lot of Tesla Powerwalls up there. I'd say about 70% of the contracts that we've done up there have been solar plus storage. And that's because people want to take control of their energy and not get ripped off by selling it back to the grid for a cost that's less than what the value of that kilowatt hour should be. Yes, ma'am? So the question is, what are the options as far as what kind of materials we're using, what kind of components, and what are the aesthetics? And raise your hand if you've heard of the Tesla roof shingles, okay? Beautiful product. I have nothing bad to say about it, but I just don't know a lot about it. I don't know when it's going to come out, I don't know how much it's going to cost, or how well it's going to work. It looks great. But we just don't know. That product is not available through this program. This program specifically, the base system will include solar PV. So that's the panels. Panels are like, just to summarize, 3 feet wide, 6 feet tall, something like that, give or take, 5 feet tall. And we string those together on the roof or on your property somehow, and the electricity is inverted from direct current to alternating current and goes to feed into your meter. So any energy that you're using, you'll use the solar power first, and then the grid will be kind of your backup source of energy. Depending on how the contractors bid, they might have upgrades. They might have some other, what we call bells and whistles available to you. But for this particular program, we're not offering the paint, we're not offering the solar tiles or any solar thermal products at all. This is purely a solar photovoltaic program.
Don, some of it would be like, is it the gray backing or is it something that blends with your roof?
Yeah, we have found through these programs that, particularly for residential, people don't want some gaudy solar system on their home. So it's really important when we're selecting materials and we're talking to the contractors that for residential applications that it be a monocrystalline cell, which means it's an all-black cell. It's a pure crystalline instead of a mixed polycrystalline material. It's more efficient that way, by the way. A black frame and a black back sheet. So all these three things together add to the aesthetic appeal and help the system blend more into the property rather than stick out like a sore thumb. That's a big part of what we do in the selection process. Does that answer your question? Okay.
For the purpose of moving this evening along, know that any of us on the coalition are available for further questions one-on-one, but I want to return to this activity that we're going to do now here in the room. I know some of you came in here having already done a lot of research about solar, and you know exactly what you want in criteria. And others of you are thinking, I don't know. I think I just want it to be affordable, or I don't even know if I can have solar on my rooftop, but I care about clean energy in Atlanta, and that's why I'm here. You still have an important role to play in this process, and we still need you to use your stickers and vote on each of these, or vote on the criteria that is most meaningful to you. And so make good use of the volunteers that are standing in each of these panels and ask your questions, and make your vote known. So, system quality is going to be staffed by John, and system aesthetics is staffed by Cody, if you're at your spot. System warranty is staffed by Ted, and he's over here. If you're interested in how the Solarize campaign is going to support a local nonprofit or a community project, you can vote for that with John over here. It looks like Trey is standing by there. Trey, are you doing that one? No, okay. Okay, John's supposed to be on that one. Jennifer is handling price. If you care that the price of this is super affordable and that's top priority, then go put your sticker over there on the pricing panel. Hiring practices is staffed by Dawn. Implementation plan. Megan from the City of Atlanta, are you going to sit on that one for us? Thank you. You can ask her questions about how the process, how the campaign is managed. Marketing plan is going to be by Gustavo over here. Where's your panel? See it right there? Okay. Bells and whistles. That would include storage and extra technology. Jeanette, she can answer questions that you have. And if you, after all of this, are still interested in volunteering with the Solarize campaign, please talk to me. I would love to know who you are and what you're passionate about. And we'll see how we can plug you into this fabulous community-led initiative. This is not the only time we will gather. This is not the only time you will get information about Solarize. This is just the beginning. We're going to have a lot of fun together, and more of our friends and neighbors are going to get involved in this campaign, and we are grateful that you're here to kick it off with us. I'll take one more question. Yes?
Can you just recap what the purpose of the vote is?
Yes. So the campaign exists in order to select an installer to serve all of the solar contracts we hope to manage in this campaign. And we need some selection criteria in order to pick the right installer for this campaign. And this campaign is meant to serve the community, so we need the community's input about what those criteria are. And so you get to choose 4 that matter to you. And if you're not sure, then you can just decide on, whoever you think is the cutest or the nicest, the most helpful. So and these are the criteria that we have set out. These criteria have been gleaned from the other Solarize campaigns we've helped lead in the state over the last 3 years. Okay? So, I'll take your question offline, okay? Just so we can get folks moving in this effort. Okay. Yes, hello, Andrew Lane.
City of Atlanta, or is it Short County, Clayton County, Fayette County?
Right now it is City of Atlanta.
So be that the cow or Fulton County?
That's right. If your address is City of Atlanta, you would qualify for this program. Emory University. They're City of Atlanta now, right? Okay. So everybody rise and go vote.